They don't have a choice this time. The first thing out of the gate has to be tax reform because those tax cuts are expiring. Those are the Trump tax cuts. I mean, they're his. So he needs to extend them, make them permanent, do whatever, and maybe make some average. But that hand has been dealt to him because otherwise his own agenda item from his first term gets away and taxes go sky high for a lot of people.
That's right, Sean. You'll remember directly, given your role in the first administration, that Congress was not able to effectively get a lot done in those first 6 months. Remember, there was this effort to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something better. John McCain famously, coming at the end there with his thumbs down, right? Exactly. And so now you have a situation where I hope that the Trump administration and Trump's team in the White House recognizes that there is a limited window. As Patrice said, I would say the first year is really when he needs to concentrate, because when you get into next year, or when you start to get into 2026, everybody will be focused on re-election and everything else. And who knows how things will play out in the midterm. So, I mean, he has a limited window to do tax reform and to do all of the other legislative things that he needs to do. For instance, immigration and border security was a huge issue in the campaign. I think that he's going to expect Congress to advance some legislation with regard to border security in order to deliver on that promise to the American people.
Yeah, that's where you're going to get a problem, Sean. That's where this is where it's got to be thought out. It's got to be more than checkers. It's got to be chess, because an immigration bill will not get 60 in the Senate. And I think that's going to be some of the issues that you're going to have to deal with. That's why the reconciliation, which if your listeners are wondering that means that it's a package. It's just a way of packaging tax or spending cuts and money bills into a bill that has only to pass the majority in the Senate and not have to go through cloture. But if you only got 1 or 2 votes in the House, Patrice mentioned SALT. We mentioned other things in there. You
SALT,
lose
by the way, just so the viewer, that's the state and local tax deduction.
Yeah.
So it means being able to write off your house.
Yeah, and unless you're a New York, if you live in New York, you're a Republican from New York or New Jersey or anywhere else, you're fine with it, because it's just basically it's taking the higher taxes of New Jersey, Illinois, New York, California, and allowing them to take them off their federal taxes. For those of us who are in states that are actually properly run and don't have a higher taxes like that, it's not that big a deal. But that's going to become a problem, because there's 5 or 6 New York members and New Jersey members that can't afford to vote for that if it's not back in there. So again, this is where real legislating has to be done, and it's going to be difficult. And it goes back to what I said: reality is going to hit pretty hard. But we haven't even talked about. You haven't cleared the table of this year yet. We're already thinking past January 20th, and you still got a budget bill. You still got appropriations bills due in 3 weeks. You got the NDAA that is needed to be passed by the end of the year. You've got a farm bill that is lost in Never Never Land right now. These are still things that are on the table.
So Doug, I'm just curious, though, Sean, if you don't mind, I just want to ask Doug one question, because you have a situation where, if you look back to when Nancy Pelosi was the speaker and basically sent a message to Democrats and said, you're going to have to vote for this, even if it means costing your seat in the next election, because it's so important to get things like Obamacare or other major legislative packages through. Do Republicans have that same attitude, or are they so worried about protecting their seat that they don't go for it?
We're getting ready to find out. I make a part of my speech when I talk to Republicans all over the country, and I'll shorten it way down. But here's what I say: Pelosi understood that there was power, position, and policy. She was willing to give up power and position to gain policy. She did it in 9 and 10. She did it in this last time. She knew that she was going to lose the speakership, but she said policy's what outlast us. Position, nice rides in Suburbans are nice, but they don't get me policy. And so she's willing to go. And I remember the famous story from the Obamacare. A liberal member came to her on the floor. I've had this confirmed by Democrats, not Republican, Democrats. He came to her on the floor, a very liberal Democrat, said, I can't vote for this, no government option. She said, yes, you will. He said, no, I won't. Back and forth for a minute. And he said, I wanted a government option. She said, it doesn't happen. I'm more liberal than you. He finally said, I can't do this. He said, okay. She said, point blank, this is what will happen. Next year, I will find a candidate. I will run that candidate, and you won't be coming back to Congress. Guess what? He voted for it.
Welcome to Washington, my friends.
But Republicans don't like that. Can you imagine talk radio, and can you imagine the blogs and everybody else? If Mike Johnson goes to a member and says, I've got to have you at 218 here, and if not, we'll see fit to not bring you back.
But Doug, the funny thing is, when we had the healthcare debate, Rob just mentioned it. I remember Mark Meadows and others coming to President Trump and saying, we think this is a bad bill. We're voting against it. And President Trump said, I need your vote. And they said, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was a first term. I think here's an interesting point. Here's an interesting point, though. Most of the members now of the Republican caucus have been elected after Trump.
Yeah.
You got to think
Good
about
point.
that. They were
Yeah.
not, and when we were there for the first 4 years, they were not elected after Trump. We now have, I think somebody told me, and I could be wrong, and this may be off a little bit, but about almost 60% or more of the Republican conference, or maybe closer to 70, have been elected since 2016.